And welcome to NewsNight, where we speak to major league players in Nigeria's democracy and the issues generated from its drive for growth and development. I am Ladi Akeredoluwale. Thanks for joining us. Today, the focus is on the petroleum industry in Nigeria, especially in light of the seeming controversy generated by a reversal of policy in terms of the removal of subsidy on petrol prices. Following the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act, the PIA, it was expected that removal of fuel subsidy would follow. Government officials and statements indicated that the removal would take place in June of 2022, after budgetary provisions would cease, according to the finance minister. But then Senate President Ahmed Lawan said President Muhammadu Buhari had not asked anyone to remove fuel subsidy. So what really is happening? My guest is someone who should know. NewsNight talks to the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Chief Timipre Silva. Honorable Minister, thank you for your time. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Larry.
Let me start with where we ended the last time that I spoke to you, and that is the PIA.
Yeah.
It's been in operation for some time now. A couple of things have happened. Could you take us through the various timelines so far under the Act? I know there have been some new agencies birthed. There have been some principles. The NNPC itself has become a limited liability company, and a number of other things have happened. Could you walk us through that and then tell us where all this is headed for?
Well, you've already taken us through everything that we have almost achieved. The PIA has been passed, as you know. The president assented to it, and the NNPC Limited was registered as a Kama company in record times. The management of the NNPC Limited has been appointed within record time. The Upstream Regulatory Commission is now in place, and of course the management is already functioning. The Mid and Downstream Regulatory Authority is also in place. DPR has been wound down. PPPRO has been wound down, or it's in the process. It has been wound down, and of course PEF is also no longer in existence. All this is actually leading us to a future where we'll have an oil industry that is very vibrant, that is led professionally, that is led by commercial considerations.
Let me bring you to the issue of refineries now. There was a lot of noise, shall we say, made at the time when the government decided that it was going to rehabilitate the Port Harcourt Refinery. Of course, since then, the other refineries have also been put on the rehabilitation plan. How is that going along?
Well, I think it's not rehabilitation plan. The rehabilitation of all the refineries are already ongoing. Port Harcourt Refinery is progressing very well. The rehabilitation of Port Harcourt Refinery is progressing very well, and we believe it will also be delivered within the time frame that we promised.
Some people said there was a fire there.
Oh, well, it was just a small fire in this. Do you know people exaggerate these fires? I mean, if there is a fire somewhere in the back of this house, I mean, it didn't affect this house at all. The fire did not affect the main component of the refinery at all. It was a very minor fire. But of course, it was reported, I mean, in the spirit of transparency. And of course, Warri Refinery is also, the rehabilitation of refinery is also on track. The rehabilitation of Kaduna Refinery is also on track. So all the things we promised you are on track, Glad.
I want to use that to link the issue of subsidies, which is something else that is expected to happen sometime this year, possibly. And the fact that the government has been in discussions with the labor unions over the process of migration. It seems as if nobody is in disagreement anymore about the need to move. But how to do this is what is being discussed now. And one of the ideas that had been floated was that until those refineries are back on stream and producing, that it may be difficult to make the migration without hurting those at the bottom of the pyramid. Is this a valid argument from your own vantage point?
I think it's part of an argument, I will say that. But I will tell you categorically that at this moment now, the complete removal of subsidy is not in our plate at all. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is not in support of removing subsidy at this time. So we're working the project, we're working out the processes. Of course, we all know that it's a desirable policy direction. But of course, just like you said, we know that it will have some impact on the people. And that's why we're trying to work out some of those things. And until those details are worked out properly with labor and with all the stakeholders in the sector, we will not remove the subsidy. At this moment, it is not in our plate, I can tell you that.
Given that background, then what is to happen now? Because what had happened up till more recently was that the NNPC was bearing the cost of the differentials between how much it costs to bring it in and how much people are paying at the pumps for it. Now, what do you see happening now, especially in view of what you've just told us that is now the position of the president vis-a-vis this matter?
Well, this is something that needs to be worked out now between the federal government and the states. I mean, because this is a federation issue. And that's why for now we're working with the governors to see how we can continue, at least with this policy direction of subsidizing fuel for the foreseeable future. I mean,
yeah, because
details have to be worked out, and that's
because they seem to be sometimes some of the governors, the way they come across is like they are a different arm of government.
No, I no. On the contrary, I believe that the governors themselves believe that the removal of pump subsidy is an inevitable policy direction. But the problem, I think everybody agrees, including you, Ladi, including Labour, everybody agrees that the subsidy removal is something that we need to do as a country. But everybody is mindful of what impact this is going to have on the people. So we have to sit back together to now think about how we can, a process that can have the least effect on the people. That's why we're thinking of a lot of options like giving them an alternative fuel, which will be cheaper. That's why we're looking at auto gas, so that we believe that will at least give an alternative to the people, so that if they find PMS too expensive, then they can have an alternative. And then, of course, we are also looking at the impact it will have on their personal income and expenditure. So a lot of us also, the Vice President is also leading an effort discussing about palliatives to the people. So all those are things we are discussing, and we need to bring everything together before we now come out to say, look, this is the package we have, and this is the policy direction towards subsidy removal.
As you were saying that, it came to my mind that, of course, the Dangote Refinery is expected to come on stream sometime this year, possibly towards the end. And government, through the NNPC, seems to have taken an interest in that as well. How much of an impact do you think that refinery will have on this situation that we're discussing now?
Well, I believe it's going to have a very significant impact on product supply in Nigeria, because it will take a very significant portion of expenditure. What I mean by that is all this issue, the tariffs, the transportation tariffs and so on, and of course demurrage and all those issues that sometimes help to fuel the importation cost. All that cost will be off, and this will be, and of course, also, it will be a local refinery. So our dollar exposure also will be reduced. Definitely, if we're buying from Dangote, we have to have some kind of dollar naira component. So at least it will help to ease a lot of pressure on the Nigerian economy. We believe that Dangote the Dangote Refinery is going to be one of the very major things that will happen that will impact the economy positively this year. In addition, we are also expecting that once the other refineries also come on stream, between those refineries and Dangote refineries, I believe that we would have stopped the importation of product. Then we can discuss the subsidy even better, subsidy removal even better.
Are you thinking that at a point, like some people who are quite optimistic have said that perhaps we could then even be exporting?
Oh yes, that is the whole idea. The whole idea is to make this Nigeria a refining hub. You can see we have a lot of modular refineries coming up. With the 3 refineries, 4 refineries in Nigeria also up, and Dangote Refinery will have excess capacity. So the expectation, and of course there are other refineries like Buhari Refinery that is also been licensed. A lot of other refineries that are still coming. So we believe at the end of the day, Nigeria will become a refining hub, and that will be exporting, will be a net exporter of products. And then we'll be earning foreign exchange into this country from exportation of product at that time, not necessarily the exportation of crude oil. So at least we would have added value to our crude oil in country
before sending it out. Yeah. Last year, and you alluded to it a little while ago when you talked about the issue of providing a cheaper alternative, and that was gas. It was supposed to be a cheaper alternative on 2 fronts. The first was on the issue of vehicles, of course, and then it was supposed to provide a cleaner alternative to households. I think that is LPG that I'm now talking about. But first on the conversion program, and so what's the update on that? Because when I spoke to you last, you were quite optimistic. At that time, it was just taking off and so on. What's the situation now? What's been the uptake like?
Well, there's been very good progress made. We have talked to countries and companies that are very willing to support us, to partner with us. Because as I told you the last time, you need to have a critical mass of cars converted to make this operational. A critical amount of cars must be converted to gas. Now, also, you have to have a corresponding number of dispensing stations built so that this number of cars that have been converted will have places to go and fill up. If you don't develop the 2 sides at the same time, you will have a situation where some cars, you have converted cars that don't have anywhere to fill from. So now we have discussed and we have concluded arrangements with companies that are ready to come in, and they are ready to meet us halfway in terms of funding. It will be a PPP, between the companies and the Nigerian government to convert the cars. We're looking at converting 1 million vehicles in the first instance, and of course building the corresponding stations to at least fuel those 1 million cars. And then we believe at that point we'll be able to orbit it, so it can now take a life of its own, and people can now come in, investors can come in and do the rest. We are quite certain this year we will make a lot of progress. Of course, the federal government has also instituted a fund in the central bank, 250 billion, and we are hoping that people will start accessing the 250 billion naira from March this year. So we will see once all that.
That 250 billion is towards this program.
It's towards gas infrastructure development, and of course the fund is in the central bank, and a lot of people have shown a lot of interest, and we believe that people will start accessing the fund from March this year. So once that fund is being accessed, you will see a lot of growth in the gas infrastructure, gas sector, in that auto gas sector.
Sure. Yeah. Now, this is happening almost at the same time as another program, which is also related to gas, the household one, where you had, and I remember at the villa, I remember hearing you say that, look, government is not, nobody, why are people looking towards government to bring down the prices? Because there was a time the price rose as a result of supply kinks, and then there was this huge demand at the same time. But somehow...
Yeah, but you see, we did a lot there. After we spoke, a lot has happened there. We engaged with the NLNG. You know, they produce a lot of LPG.
Right.
Before now, because the local consumption was quite low, the NLNG exported a lot of their LPG. So we negotiated with them last year after our discussion to ensure that they bring in all their LPG into the country. So now the LNG has brought in all their LNG. So the supply situation has eased. So you can see that prices are coming down. Furthermore, we are trying to see how we can remove VAT and some taxes on imported gas. So our government, although we are not, it's not a deregulated, it's not a regulated market, but we are still, as a government, very mindful of the impact that the price of gas is having on the people, and doing everything to ensure that we bring down the gas prices. And we're beginning to see very good results.
That was on one leg. On the other leg, there was the issue of the cylinders themselves, because we tried to do some investigation.
Yes, what we are trying to do, I mean, because, you see, people always talk about cylinders, and that is not the solution. They've done that before, and it didn't work. Because if you give a cylinder, or you buy 1 million cylinders and give to rural women, what happens? The rural women just turn around and sell the cylinders to the city women, and they go back to their firewood because they don't have the funding to be filling the cylinders. So it doesn't work. So it must be a complete package, end to end. And that's why we're trying to work with, from the cylinder production level, of course there are cylinder production companies that we have enabled, that are built, that are constructing now. We are expecting that one of them will come on stream this year. We'll be producing about 1 million cylinders a year or so. There are, of course, there is another cylinder company we have also enabled them through the instrumentality of the NCDMB. And all this will come. But what we are also doing in addition to that is to ensure that the people can actually afford the gas. Because the problem militating against the usage of gas by rural people is that the cost is too much for them. They go to, they want to refill their cylinder. They have to fill up the whole cylinder. I mean, even prices went up to as much as 8,000 naira to refill your cylinder. You don't have that kind of money at the rural level. So, but if you now enable a system where they can have fractional filling, where they can go and buy half a cylinder, if that is how much they can afford, or even a quarter of a cylinder, if that is how much they can afford, then that will give them the possibility of using it. Because if I'm using kerosene to cook, I can go to the market and I can buy half a bottle of kerosene. I can buy a gallon of kerosene. So it doesn't matter how much. I mean, I can buy as much as I have, for as much as I have. But if you have a situation where I must buy a full cylinder, then it becomes unaffordable to me. So these are some of the problems we have seen, and we are working to ensure that we're able to introduce these possibilities so that people can feel fractionally. And of course, now that we've brought down, and we can tell you, we've done this with NLNG, we believe that we will do it with other IOCs that are also exporting their gas. By the time we're able to bring in all the gas that is being exported into the country, we believe that we'll further crash the cost of gas. And then with the additional possibility of fractional filling, gas will become very affordable to our people. So unless you take it from this totality, you will not succeed. Because if you just go and, I read, people are trying to distribute cylinders, it will fail. Because you distribute the cylinders and the people will just turn around and sell the cylinders. That is what has been happening all this while. And it will happen again if you don't get it right. Let's not do the same thing over and over again and expect a different
result. Now, that links me to the issue of gas flaring. Because when the price of gas is going on, of course, other allied topics then showed up, which is that why should this thing be so expensive when we're more or less flaring it into the atmosphere? Many of the IOCs you mentioned would rather pay the fine and continue flaring than, and you know this because you are from a community where that is the issue.
I agree, but I think this gas flaring issue is being exaggerated because where we are now is quite minimal, and we're actually at the last mile of gas flaring. Gas flaring in this country has been reduced to a mere 8%. Most of the gas is no longer being flared in the industry today as we speak. And I can bear you witness because I come from
a community where there
was a major flare. But now the flare is down. So gas flare, I mean, people just exaggerate. It's an old story. But right now we have about 8%. And of course, you know of the gas flare commercialization program.
That's right. Which
is now going to mop up all these 8% that is being flared. And then, of course, we'll be out of gas flaring. So gas flaring, I think, is just being over-exaggerated. It's no longer really our biggest problem. But we have the gas. A lot of our gas is stranded. And we believe that if we are able to build the infrastructure to bring the gas into the country, we will not have any problem with gas in this country. Because the problem we have in Nigeria is not the availability of gas, but the inavailability of infrastructure to bring the gas. That's why we're doing all this, the major infrastructure like AKK, to bring in the gas into the country. Because AKK is going to take the gas from the south all the way to the north. So it will create a backbone, an energy backbone in the center of Nigeria and connect the north to the south to the north. So if we're able to now build on this, and of course with the new law enabling the gas infrastructure fund, which is going to enable a lot of investment in this sector as well. And then of course, once we have the infrastructure, all these problems will be over. Because the problem now is you have the gas in a creek, maybe around my area. You have the gas, but how do you evacuate it? You have to build the infrastructure to evacuate it. And the amount of gas you have in situ may not support the cost for constructing the infrastructure. So people just cap it because, I mean, it's not viable.
It doesn't make economic sense.
Make economic sense. So that's why we have this problem. So the government is now focusing now on the development of infrastructure to evacuate this gas. And once that is done, the problem of gas supply and gas flares and the supply and so on will be over.
Because that also ties into power supply. Because there are there are many plants that are reliant or that are supposed to receive gas for them to be able to produce electricity. And the information is that many of them cannot because of this infrastructure.
Well, yes, that is part of it. But also, as far as power supply is concerned, it also has to do with payment issues. I can
which is a different kettle of fish.
Because I mean, if I supply you gas, you should pay me for my gas.
Because I can't collect it back after you've used it.
Exactly. Because the way it works in Nigeria now is that the transmission companies take the gas, the generation companies, the GENCOs, will take the gas, generate the gas, move it to the transmission companies. Transmission companies will move it to the DISCOs. And then the DISCOs will say, oh, their collection is about 30%. So they cannot pay for gas. So I asked this question, I said, okay, if you are taking a taxi to go and do business in the morning, and then you took a taxi, and the taxi took you to the point where you were supposed to do your business, and unfortunately your business did not work out. And then you come back to the taxi and say, look, sorry, taxi, I can't pay you because my business didn't work out. That's not the taxi driver's business.
Yeah.
You pay for the taxi because you have utilized it. So pay for the gas. Those are some of the issues that we're having. And we have a lot of collection issues that the DISCOs need to settle. But frankly speaking, the payment for the gas that is being utilized is not very optimal. And that's why you see that the gas suppliers have their issues all the time. And of course, when you are supplying gas and you're not getting paid, that affects your capacity to produce further. And that's why a lot of producers also even prefer to export Because, I mean, if you're going to produce your gas and you cannot sell it, and then they can't pay for the gas in the country, then you prefer to even sell it for less outside where you can collect your money immediately. Sure. So these are all the problems that we have to solve. And that the local capacity to pay, we are working on that now. I mean, with, of course, the help of the Vice President and the Central Bank governor and so on. We are helping to sort out some of those issues. And I'm sure once we are able to settle the issues of payment for gas as used, then I think this problem of Gencos too will reduce considerably.
You've talked before about the issue of our reserves, both in terms of petroleum, crude oil rather, and gas. And a great deal of potential then, you said, was locked in because there was uncertainty, especially surrounding what has now become the PIA. Now that the PIA is in place and has been for a while, are you sensing a difference in investor attitude, in investment?
No, definitely, Ladi. We are seeing a lot of attitude change. You know, a lot of the IOCs in this country have not invested in Nigeria for a long time. They took a sit-down look approach because a lot of things are were still in flux. The PIA passage process was still on, and they didn't know what complexion the law was going to take at the end of the day. So everybody was on a wait-and-see mode. But now it is not that mode right now. The oil companies have taken definite decisions. A lot of them have met with us, and they have committed to developing new projects. So we believe that there will be an upswing in investment in the sector. Plus, I mean, we also are expecting that we're able to have some additional players into the sector, apart from the ones that we have here. The IOCs are quite keen on investing further in this country, which is good for us because we want to ensure that we can signal to the rest of the world that the IOCs that are here are happy, so that we can actually attract more investors. And that is what is happening now. Hopefully, we'll get a lot of investors coming into Nigeria very soon. The only problem now is that you know that global demand has not completely recovered. And of course, combined with all the issues around climate change and energy transition, we have some bit of challenge, but on the whole, I think that very soon we will have an upswing in investments in the sector.
You're one of those who has taken the position that while many countries and many regions have started to push this cleaner energy, the movement to other forms of energy where countries like ours may not be at an advantage, especially at the initial stages, that we must continue to leverage on what we have. I've heard you say that more than once. Yeah. And that therefore this stampede into new energy, we've got to look at it properly. But as you've just pointed out, it is happening. But we still have all these resources that are not clean, so to speak. And I put clean in inverted commas, because some of the more developed countries were also using this less clean energy to develop themselves. These are positions that you've made. But then when you get to organizations like OPEC, of which Nigeria is a very strong member, what kind of reception do these kind of arguments get, especially because there is this global push moving away, even though many of the members are people who still have vast reserves of this old, shall we say, less clean energy?
Well, OPEC has never been against the movement, the transition to cleaner energy. But what we are saying is, even all the forecasts into the future, all the future outlooks, will tell you that even by 2060, by 2060, it's not as if oil will not be part of the global energy mix. It will still be part of the global energy mix, but its role will be reduced because there will be cleaner fuels that have taken a lot of the percentages that oil is now having. So if, for example, oil was contributing to 100% of global energy mix, of the global energy mix. By then it will probably reduce to 20%, 30%, 40%, whatever it is. So it will be part of the mix. It's a mix. You have crude oil, you have renewables, you have gas, you have nuclear, you have other sources of energy. So it will always be part of the mix. So we are very mindful of it. And we are saying, okay, if the time has come for us to reduce our dependence, it has to be gradual for us. And that is even the position of OPEC. You cannot tell us to say, stop producing crude oil and gas now, and then just move. I mean, and the global economy cannot even take it, as you can see. Today, we are hearing, I don't know, from sources that even the EU is beginning to categorize gas as clean fuel.
That's clean fuel.
Because they have seen that it's not possible. You saw what happened to them recently.
Yes, when they had the weather situation.
Exactly. When their renewables failed them, then they had to go back quickly to gas. And of course, that pushed up the gas prices to astronomical levels. Everybody is coming to the reality that oil and gas will still always be part of the mix for a long, long time to come. So it will always be part of the mix. And that's why we are saying we must continue to invest in this sector, because we have good reserves that we have to take, get benefit from. And of course, here, especially in Nigeria, we have a major energy gap. How do we fill this energy gap? How quickly can we fill it? Is it through renewables? Is it through transiting to renewables quickly, or using the resources that we already have? So we believe that we need to fill this gap, because we are also obligated to our sustainable development goals, which makes it mandatory for us to give energy to our people. I mean, there are so many people without energy today here.
Clean or otherwise.
Clean or otherwise. So we are obligated, according to the Millennium Development Goals, to give them energy, clean or whatever it is. So we have to ensure that we give this energy to the people. How do we give them energy? We believe that the easiest way we can give energy to our people now is not through renewables. Although renewable is also part of the energy mix in Nigeria today, we are not saying we are against renewables, but we are saying as much as we recognize the need to transit, they must allow us also to give energy to our people, and also utilizing the abundant oil and gas resources that we have.
We've discussed a lot about the various energy sources and the importance of infrastructure and so on. But one of the problems we have with existing infrastructure, and which people fear for when you're talking about even future investment or building further infrastructure, is the issue of vandalization, security breaches, and all of that. For example, the pipeline you mentioned, which is forming the backbone from the south to the north. We know what has happened with many of the pipelines, which are supposed to bring, what has not made that a major story is the fact that the refineries were not producing that much. Otherwise, it would have come to the fore a lot sooner. With the rehabilitation that the federal government is doing now, that may soon become an issue. What, going forward, there are those who have said, well, in other places, many of these things are now buried underground. So even for a vandal to get at them, the vandal has to be a particular kind of vandal to be able to get to them. Are we thinking along those lines too?
No, definitely. I mean, pipelines are buried in Nigeria. I mean, they are not on the surface at all. So we're already doing that. And we are thinking also of that as a problem for the future. I mean, when you have the refineries functioning. So now the problem in Nigeria was the management of the pipeline system. The pipeline system was not really recognized by the Nigerian legal system or by the Nigerian business environment as a business. So the midstream was not considered a business of it by itself. So somehow there were no laws to enable the development of the midstream. Today with the PIA, you now have laws that are meant to develop the midstream. That means you can own a pipeline You don't have to own a refinery. You don't even have to own
a filling station,
an oil well, an oil block, but you can own
something in the middle.
You can own something in the middle to transport the oil from the well to the refinery for the producer and for the refinery. So that sector of the business is now enabled. So what NNPC is doing, if you have watched out, you see the NNPC is already asking for people to come and take over the management of the pipelines. So now if you have a situation where my business is to manage this pipeline, because if a refinery owns a pipeline that is 200 kilometers long, the refinery cannot manage optimally that pipeline because their focus is on managing the refinery
itself.
But now if you have somebody else, apart from the refinery, owning the pipeline, then his business is the pipeline. His business is to ensure that the pipeline is secure so that he can deliver product to you. So that now becomes a lot more effective model. That is the model we are moving to now. So that the pipelines will now be managed properly, and of course the infrastructure, like moving products and gas and so on, will be managed more effectively. That's what the PIA has also enabled. That is actually within the purview of the mid and downstream regulatory authority.
I'm going to spend the last few minutes I have with you now talking about the other thing that is a lot of which is going to happen this year, and that is politics. It's not an election year nationally. It is in some states, but it is the prelude to a national election, and so a lot of activities are going on. Between the time I spoke to you last and now, your party has gained a governor from your region.
Yes.
I'm wondering, what do you make today of the political situation? It appears that the temperature is again beginning to go upwards. Are you one of those who thinks that's normal?
Well, it's very normal. I expect that it's very normal. The temperature will always go up and down. But I told you then that, the difference between our party and any other party in Nigeria is that we have a rallying figure. Someone that we all respect. Someone that we all know is above board. So at the end of the day, people will make all the noises here and there. But I can assure you, it is that person that we all respect, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that will determine the direction that things will go in our party.
But he won't be on the ballot this time.
No, he won't be on the ballot, but he is still the President of Nigeria. He's still our leader. So he will have to give some direction that will help us to steer. He will steer, because he will steer the ship.
Are you sure he would do that, Honorable Minister? Because he told my colleagues during the presidential when they asked him about 2020, he said, "Not my problem."
No. You see, it's not going to say that, but we all must, I believe, at the end of the day, listen to where he is going. If, for example, as a president, he has a right to vote, isn't it?
He does.
You can't take the right to vote.
He does.
As a president, he's still a political player, isn't he? So as a president, he can support someone, can't he?
Obviously, yes.
So if I watch my president and I see that my president is supporting someone or is going to vote for someone, that's where likely my vote will go to. So the other person might also be watching him as a leader. Because, we have a leader and we have a rallying point.
Right.
And of course, as long as he is where he is and is respected as he is, both in Nigeria and internationally, we have to focus and make sure that he gives us the direction that is required. So all this noise that you are hearing at the end of the day, I believe, will boil down to something that is not as rancorous as you are probably envisaging.
Well, given that, then I guess the other thing, of course, is that there's something that has run through all of this in the run-up to this, and that is what you alluded to earlier, the issue of security. Are you worried that that might have effect on this fairly rosy picture you painted?
I don't know if I've painted a rosy picture, but of course, we know that there is insecurity. There was insecurity, maybe even more of insecurity in 2015 when we came. You remember that in 2015, there were local governments that were under the leadership and under the control of Boko Haram. But we still had elections. We still had elections in 2015. Today, the security problem is not as much as it was when we came in. You must agree with me. So, well, there will always, in a country like this, even in any other country, there will always be all these skirmishes and problems. I don't think that is going to affect the elections at all. The elections will hold because I believe that every Nigerian knows that it is necessary for elections to hold for us to make progress.
My final question would be, in the midst of all the things that are happening, several of your contemporaries, previous contemporaries and current contemporaries, have made the switch from being governors to ministers. A few of them have also made the switch back from minister back to governor. Has it ever crossed your mind?
Not really.
Why?
You see, I believe in focusing on what is at hand and allowing things to unfold on their own, the future to unfold. So right now, by the grace of God and by the grace of the President, I am Minister of State for Petroleum. And that's what I know, and I'm focused on it. The future will unfold by itself, and I will ride it.
Honorable Minister, I won't take that. That's a political answer you've given me. Perhaps if you're not thinking of the governorship, then the presidency. Because that is what is actually up in 2023.
Well, I have told you, I've answered it. I said the future will unfold.
So you're keeping the options open?
I keep all my options open. Maybe I might just even think of going to the Senate or House of Reps or even going to the House of Assembly again.
That's again still political answer. Honorable Minister, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Ladi.
That's today's episode of NewsNight. The minister's answers to some of the issues raise a number of questions. Among them are, what happens now if fuel subsidy removal is no longer on the cards, especially given the provisions of the newly passed Petroleum Industry Act? Also, given the reduction in the percentage of gas being flared, according to the minister, are the effects being felt in those communities affected? Meanwhile, we would love to hear from you on what you've heard today. Our social media handles are right there on your screen. You can also listen to this and previous episodes of the program via our podcast. Please visit our website, channelstv.com/podcast to get started. I am Ladi Akeredoluale. Goodbye.